Hey everyone, this is Steffi from the Net Team in Letterkenny. Today we're going to be hearing Anthony reflect on the gospel and how it relates to an art piece. Take care.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. A genealogy of Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah, Tamar being their mother. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Ram the father of Aminadab. Aminadab the father of Nahshon. Nahshon the father of Solomon. Solomon the father of Boaz. Rahab being his mother. Boaz was the father of Obed, Ruth being his mother. Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. Solomon was the father of Rehoboam, Rehoboam the father of Abishai, Abishai the father of Asa, Asa the father of Jehoshaphat, Jehoshaphat the father of Joram, Joram the father of Az, Az the father of Hezekiah, Hezekiah was the father of Manasseh, Manasseh the father of Ammon, Ammon the father of Josiah, and Josiah was the father of Jeconiah. Then the deportation of Babylon took place. After the deportation of Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Shealtiel. Shealtiel was the father of Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel was the father of Abiud. Abiud was the father of Eliakim. Eliakim was the father of Azor. Azor was the father of Zodok. Zadok the father of Akim. Akim the father of Eliud. Eliud the father of Eleazar. Eleazar the father of Mathan. Mathan the father of Jacob. And Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary. Of her was born Jesus, who is called Christ. The sum of generations is therefore 14 from Abraham to David, 14 from David to Babylon deportation, and 14 from the Babylon deportation to Christ. The Gospel of the Lord.
Hello, I'm glad you've made it this far, because that's a very long Gospel reading. It comes from the beginning of Matthew's Gospel. And Matthew begins his Gospel because with these words of the ancestry of Jesus Christ, because he wants us to make the connection between the coming of Jesus, the Savior of the world, and the story of the people of God leading up to that point. That God had worked through the history of his people and that he brought the Messiah that he promised himself. But also that Jesus is a real human being and he has ancestors like all of us do. And for that reason, we will look at the stained glass window from the cathedral in Rennes in France. And it is a segment of a stained glass window of the Jesse tree. In the book of Isaiah, we read, "A shoot shall spring from the stalk of Jesse." And so it's this image of a tree, and that a branch comes out of this tree, and that the branch then bears fruit. And this fruit, in a symbolic way, is Jesus Christ. He was promised before this branch that should come, but that means because it's a branch coming out of a tree, that means that the fruit comes from somewhere, it comes from the branch. And so we see in this tree, we see a picture of David, who is in between these two branches on this stained glass window. And David was a king, and he was wearing a crown, which shows this. He was a great king and wrote many of the prayers in the Old Testament and renowned by the people of Israel. And of course, he is a great figure of the Old Testament and one of the great ancestors of Jesus Christ. And yet, at the same time, there is also these other people, Josiah, Nashon. Who are these people? There's lots of people in this gospel that we've heard that we just simply don't know who they are. Well, we look at them in the Old Testament, but we're not familiar with them. And indeed, many of them made big mistakes and are not renowned for doing good things, but perhaps are even renowned for doing evil. You and I, in our families, we have ancestors, some of whom are wonderful people, some who made big mistakes, whether they be our parents or grandparents, or people who came long before us. And in some sense, they are part of our story. But this gospel shows us that no matter what our history is, indeed, no matter what the ancestry of Jesus Christ is, God's providence and his power is more than the mistakes and failures of those people. And that God brings salvation and works in even these people who are part of the story of Jesus. They're worked into the coming of salvation into the world. And so for you and me, no matter what the mistakes and failings of our parents or grandparents, of our ancestors are, that is not a problem for God. We are not the sum of the mistakes of the people who have gone before us. And their actions do not determine our fate. And so I invite you to look again at this gospel and marvel at the providence of God. That in spite of sin and in spite of failings and imperfections, God brings forth a shoot from the stock of Jesse, and he brings the salvation that he promised to his people. Marvel at it, because it is part of our story too. And that if we are willing and if we wish to see salvation in our lives, if we wish to receive grace, joy and hope, we are not prohibited from this because of what has happened before. Nothing is impossible for God. Thank you for watching.